Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Ever looked in the mirror and felt someone else staring back? Not a stranger, not a reflection, but a presence. Something beneath your smile, beneath your softness. A shadow that knows your secret desires, your silent rage, your unspoken hunger. Jung once said every woman has two faces, one the world adores, and one the soul hides. The light and the shadow, the saint and the seductress, the giver and the devourer. It's not about good or evil. It's about the collision of archetypes, the eternal dance between the anima and her own shadow. You see, beneath every woman's grace lies an ancient, untamed fire, a forgotten goddess whispering through her bloodline saying, "Remember who you were, before they told you who to be." He's not addicted to her beauty. He's addicted to the feeling she awakens in him, the mystery, the danger, the mirror of his own darkness. Because when she looks at him, she doesn't see the man. She sees the myth inside him, and that terrifies him. So who is she really? An angel fallen into flesh? Or the shadow that teaches him what light truly means? This is her mirror. This is the mirror of the shadow. They say every light casts a shadow, but Jung whispered a deeper truth. The shadow is not the enemy. It is the soul's missing half. The moment a woman learns to be good, her shadow learns how to be dangerous. She smiles when expected, softens when told. And somewhere in that obedience, something wild begins to stir. You can see it in her eyes, that silent question burning behind the calm. What if I stopped pretending? Her hidden face isn't evil. It's everything she suppressed to be loved, every no she swallowed, every dream she buried beneath politeness, every part of her that society called too much, too emotional, too sensual, too free. But the unconscious keeps the receipts. And one night, maybe through love, pain, or loss, she meets the other her, the mirror version, the one who doesn't care about approval, who dances barefoot through the forbidden garden of her own desire. Jung called this the meeting with the shadow feminine, not a demon, but an initiation, a sacred storm that breaks the illusion of innocence. And here's the twist. Men don't fall for women by accident. They fall into the gravitational field of their own unconscious, mirrored by her eyes. She becomes his anima, his reflection, his medicine, and his poison. Because when a woman embraces her darkness, she doesn't destroy, she awakens, and the world trembles before her balance of softness and fire. Every man carries within him the eternal image of woman, not the image of this or that woman, but of a definite feminine image. Carl Jung. He doesn't fall in love with her. He falls in love with the mirror she holds, the one that reflects his unspoken longing, his hidden tenderness, his unhealed wounds. To him, she feels like destiny. But Jung would whisper, "It's not love, my friend. It's projection." When a man looks into the eyes of a woman who has met her shadow, he sees the parts of himself he never dared to face. Her darkness calls to his repression. Her calm calls to his chaos. Her mystery calls to his missing myth. And that's where fear begins. Because to love a real woman, a woman who's met her demons and danced with them under the moon, is to stand naked before the truth. She doesn't crave validation. She doesn't play by the rules of approval. She doesn't need saving, because she's already been to her own underworld and returned crowned in silence. Men say they want depth, until they meet it in a woman. They say they want passion, until her fire burns through their masks. But when a man stays, when he resists the urge to run, he finds something holy in that storm. He finds the reflection of his own awakening. That's the alchemy Jung spoke of, the sacred union of opposites. Love not as escape, but as transformation. Jung said every woman carries two faces, one made of light, soft, radiant, nurturing, the other carved from shadow, magnetic, dangerous, unyielding. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung. The first face, the luminous anima. She is tenderness itself, She heals, inspires, restores. She is the morning sun after the long night, the muse, the mother, the dream that brings a man home to himself. But the second face, the shadow queen, she doesn't heal. She awakens. She is the night storm that tears through illusion. The dark priestess who says, "You cannot love me if you fear your own depths." She is not cruel. She's truthful. Her love doesn't soothe. It burns away the false self. And that's why she is feared, misunderstood, even demonized. Society worships the light face, the gentle, smiling, forgiving woman. But it hides from the other, the one who owns her hunger, her rage, her sensual intelligence. Yet Jung believed, without embracing her shadow, a woman remains incomplete. The paradox is sacred. The light face gives life. The shadow face gives meaning. One nurtures, the other transforms. Together they create the wholeness of the feminine soul, the eternal dance between the saint and the serpent. And when she finally unites them, she becomes untouchable. Not because she's perfect, but because she's real. There comes a night when the mirror no longer flatters, when the light fades and what stares back isn't the woman you show the world, but the one you've hidden from it. That's the mirror test, the moment of inner reckoning. The night Jung spoke of, when the unconscious knocks softly at first, then louder, until you open the door and meet her. She isn't cruel. She isn't kind. She is truth in its rawest form. The voice you silenced, the fire you feared, the hunger you disguised as politeness. You think she's your enemy, but she's the half of your soul you exiled to survive. She whispers, "You don't need to be light all the time. The moon glows because it knows the dark." When a woman faces her shadow, she begins to reclaim her lost power. Not the power that conquers, but the power that knows. She stops apologizing for her intensity. She stops hiding her intuition. She stops chasing love that demands her silence. Because once she has looked her shadow in the eyes, nothing external can define her worth again. Jung called it individuation, the alchemy of selfhood, the sacred art of becoming whole. And here's the paradox. The shadow isn't there to destroy the light. It's there to complete it. When a woman integrates her darkness, she doesn't lose herself. She finds her throne. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. This is where the journey turns gold, where the fragments unite, and the woman who once feared her reflection now becomes the reflection the world cannot forget. No longer light or dark, but the rhythm between them. She walks like a prayer in motion, each step a spell, each breath a resurrection. Her smile carries both mercy and fire. Her silence no longer hides pain, it holds power, because she knows now. The shadow wasn't her punishment, it was her path to becoming sacred. She is the mother and the mystery, the healer and the storm. She is Artemis and Lilith, Venus and the void. She is the whole archetype, the living myth Jung called the self. And when she loves now, she doesn't seek completion. She mirrors the divine within another, without losing herself in the reflection. That's the secret of the sacred feminine. She no longer needs to be chosen. She chooses herself. Every tear, every desire, every forbidden emotion, woven into gold by the fire of awareness. This is the true alchemy, not turning lead into gold, but turning pain into wisdom. And so she rises, not as goddess or ghost, but as woman, fully human, fully divine. The light and the shadow in one heartbeat. That's not mythology. That's memory. The memory of who she was, before the world told her to forget. When a woman becomes whole, the world feels it, especially men. Something in her energy changes. She no longer asks to be seen, she simply is. And in her stillness, everything starts to orbit. He feels it, that quiet power, that subtle fire. Not the kind that seduces with words, but the kind that reveals his own reflection through her gaze. The meeting with the Anima, Jung said, is the most dangerous encounter a man can have. because she is no longer a fantasy. She is the mirror. And when he looks into her, he doesn't just see beauty. He sees the pieces of himself he's been running from. Her shadow speaks to his. Her depth calls out his numbness. Her mystery cracks his armor. She doesn't chase, she doesn't prove. She simply exists. And in that existence, she becomes an initiation. Some men will flee, because the awakened woman doesn't reflect their illusions. She reflects their truth. But others, the brave ones, will stay. They'll stand in the gravity of her presence and feel both terrified and alive, because in her eyes they meet the sacred paradox, tender yet untamed, gentle yet infinite, the mirror that does not flatter, but transforms. She doesn't promise comfort. She offers awakening. And for the man ready to see, she becomes not a lover, but a revelation. That's the shadow's gift. She doesn't make him fall in love with her. She makes him fall in love with his own soul. There comes a quiet after the fire, a silence that isn't emptiness, but arrival. The woman who once searched every reflection for her truth now walks past mirrors untouched. She doesn't need them anymore. The storm has settled inside her, not as chaos, but as clarity. Because she has realized the shadow was never her enemy, and the light was never her savior. They were both her teachers. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung said, is to become who you truly are. And so she lives, not chasing identity, not performing goodness, but existing as truth itself, raw, radiant, and real. The same world that once tried to define her now feels her presence and cannot name it, because she has become undefinable, a paradox made flesh. Her laughter carries the memory of sorrow. Her calm hides the echo of 1,000 storms. Her beauty no longer comes from innocence, but from the wisdom of having survived herself. When she looks into another's eyes now, it isn't for validation, it's recognition. She sees the divine hidden within everyone, even their shadow. That's what it means to return. To live without needing to be seen, because you have already seen yourself. No drama, no mask, just the eternal pulse of authenticity. A woman who has walked through her darkness and found her light waiting inside. And when she smiles now, it isn't for the camera or for him. It's for the mirror she no longer needs. In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. Carl Jung. The journey ends where it began, before the mirror. But this time there is no division, no light or shadow, no saint or seductress, only wholeness. Because the truth is this: every woman carries both faces and every man carries both within himself. The feminine and the masculine are not opposites, but reflections. Two mirrors facing one another, infinite, eternal, divine. When she looked into her own shadow, she unknowingly healed his. When he faced his fear of her depth, he awakened his soul's compassion. And together, they mirrored the sacred rhythm of the psyche, the eternal dance of Anima and Animus. Jung knew, human love is the theater of divine transformation. Every attraction, every heartbreak, every longing is the soul's secret attempt to remember itself. So when he said every woman has two faces, he wasn't speaking of deception. He was describing divinity, the paradox that births creation itself. She is the light that reveals the path, and the shadow that gives it meaning. She is tenderness made of thunder, and silence woven with fire. And when a woman knows this, when she embraces both faces, she becomes the mirror through which the world learns to see itself. Because in the end, the mirror of the shadow is not about her or him. It's about all of us, learning to love what we once feared. And that is Jung's final truth. The soul is a mirror. And the moment you dare to look, you no longer see faces. You see eternity staring back. The story doesn't end with her walking away. It ends with her standing still, eyes open, heart quiet, soul awake. Because once you meet your shadow, you can never unsee it. And once you love it, you become untouchable. There is a silence in her now. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of mastery. She no longer performs light or hides her darkness. She simply is. When people look at her, they feel something ancient, as if they're standing before a memory they can't quite name. It's not beauty, it's not danger, it's truth, naked, magnetic, eternal. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But she did it. She accepted it all. The sinner and the saint, the lover and the destroyer, the flame and the ash. And now she moves differently, as if the air itself recognizes her. She has become what Jung called the self, the union of all opposites, the living bridge between spirit and matter. Men see her and remember their own soul. Women see her and remember their forgotten power. And the world, for a brief moment, remembers balance. Because the divine feminine isn't a symbol, it's a mirror. And when she became that mirror, she stopped reflecting the world's expectations and began reflecting its truth. That is the end of the story, and the beginning of another. Because the woman who becomes her own mirror becomes eternal, not through perfection, but through wholeness. In the end, Jung wasn't just speaking of women. He was speaking of all souls, each one born split between shadow and light, each one longing to remember its wholeness. He gave us a map, not to heaven or hell, but to the secret garden inside the human psyche, where the divine hides in our contradictions. And the woman with two faces? She is not a myth. She is a mirror of you, of the wars you fight within, of the tenderness you deny, of the power you bury beneath politeness. Every glance you give, every love you chase, every heartbreak that cracks your chest open, it is the soul's alchemy, turning ignorance into awareness, shadow into gold. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung warned, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. But tonight, fate has a face, and it looks back at you. So when you stand before your own mirror, and the world tells you to hide your darkness, remember this story. The divine feminine is not a mask. She is the mirror of creation itself, soft and ruthless, radiant and obscure, forever revealing the truth beneath illusion. And perhaps that is why every woman, every soul, has two faces, because one belongs to the world and the other to eternity. And now, as the mirror fades and the silence of your own reflection begins to speak, ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? Who do you become when the mask falls away? Because the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits, patiently, lovingly, for the moment you're ready to meet it. And when you finally do, you'll understand why Jung said that what you deny controls you, but what you accept transforms you. So, before you go, pause. Look into your own eyes. You might just see her there. The woman of light and shadow, the mirror of your hidden self. Because the mystery of the feminine is not outside you. It's within. It always has been. Brief pause, soft wind sound, distant bell tone. This was the mirror of the shadow. If your soul felt something stir tonight, don't let it fade. Let it follow you, into your dreams, into your loves, into the places you fear to go. And when you're ready to explore deeper, subscribe. Because here we don't chase beauty, we reveal truth. And now, the mirror is silent, but the reflection remains. Every story we tell here is not about the past. It's about the soul's awakening in the present moment. You are not the mask you wear. You are not the role you play. You are the witness behind both faces, the timeless self, the eternal feminine within every heart. So as the screen fades to black, let the darkness remind you, it is not your enemy. It is your origin. The light was never meant to destroy the shadow. It was meant to embrace it. This is where transformation begins. If you felt something tonight, if your shadow whispered back, subscribe for more Jungian journeys into the hidden feminine. Because here, we don't run from darkness. We turn it into art.